Hi, today my presentation is on Chido's Dreams of Buddhism, written by William Vodford. So who was Chido? Chido was a Japanese Buddhist monk from the late 13th century. He was considered the master of Shingon esoteric practices. He tended to contradict or oppose the teachings of Pure Land Buddhists. The Pure Land Buddhists believed that individuals could not achieve awakening or enlightenment through their own efforts. The introduction gives a brief overview of Chido's Dreams of Buddhism. This text is a Japanese didactic treatise written during the late 13th century. Chido attempts to tackle the idea that awakening from sleep-induced dreams, as much of us do, is similar to that of religious awakening. He assumes that readers accept the Buddhist critique of our common-sense world of individual existence as being dreamlike and lacking ultimate validity. I will elaborate further on this in future slides. He also assumes that the reader wants liberation from such reality. In this story, Chido depicts the dialogue between a host and a guest in a humble hermitage. He emphasizes that we should view existence just as we do dreams. By awakening from our mistaken belief in existence, we can achieve true religious awakening. He provides teachings on birth, death, and ignorance. When encountering the host after traveling from afar, the guest had asked for teachings of liberation from birth and death. The host was ultimately surprised to find throughout the years of Buddhist teachings, the guest had never learned how to attain liberation. He had told the guest to use his sleep-induced dreams from the night as his teacher so that he will not have deep attachments to the world, for this was lacking ultimate validity. He considered dreams to be no different from waking reality, as both conjure feelings of anger and joy for the individual. He argues that an individual's transmigration through birth and death is no different from dreams, as the existence perceived in dreams feel real until we awaken and realize the existence was actually imaginary. Birth and death, in this sense, are fundamentally non-existent. Ignorance, another key principle throughout this passage, can be defined as not knowing that one's own mind is Buddha. This is very different from Western views of what ignorance is. He believes that ignorance is a source of mistaken beliefs. Ignorance is seen as a delusion where one's mind enters into the frowned-upon, common-sense world of existence. If one believes Buddha's teachings that life and death are ultimately a dream, or imaginative, then they should leave these mistaken beliefs of dreams and awaken in an ultimate enlightenment. If one has not awakened from these dreams, then they must believe that they're actually existing, which is frowned upon according to Chido. Belief in self-existence that means that the individual is in the three realms of desire, form, and no form. By believing that the self is empty, one leaves these realms. The host stated, the three periods of past, present, and future cannot be grasped. This being so, any sentient being who awakens to this realization can be called Buddha or Patriarch. An example given is, the elements or things that one believes in that they see when dreaming do not come in existence after awakening from the dream. This is an example of the future. They do not go out of existence after awakening. That's the past. They only seem to exist during the dream. However, we know that the elements from the dreams do not actually exist. This is an example of the present. In conclusion to this principle of ignorance, the objects experienced while awake are no different than those experienced while asleep. If one knows reality as it is, where birth and death are non-existent, then one becomes Buddha who knows wisdom. The principle of moral consequences is another portion of this text. Chido believes that it is because of the lack of permanent essence or existence of elements that evil leads to harmful retributions and that good leads to benefits. Both good and evil are dreams, and this realization will lead to ultimate awakening. Because during dreams the acts of both good and evil are not real, for example, somebody engaging in charity during their dreams, or somebody engaging in a robbery in their dreams, both karmic sin and karmic benefit are totally non-existent, which allows those who have acted in evil forms, such as robbery, to still attain Buddhahood. Sins during dreams dissolve into a state of fundamental non-being, allowing for the elimination of sins. Chido dedicates a portion of his text to the meditation on the syllable A. The syllable A encompasses all Buddhist teachings, example, the Great Vehicles doctrines, by compacting them all into one syllable. The syllable A takes form in color, shape, sound, and meaning, allowing for those who practice it to focus on specific forms. An example, one can practice by focusing their mind on color and shape. One can also practice by just making the sound or vocalizing it. This single syllable avoids distraction that would come with the Pure Land Buddhist chants, as they are very wordy. So in this presentation, I have included assumptions regarding gender and class hierarchy. Throughout Chido's Dreams of Buddhism, Chido does not mention gender roles for the time period, which is unlike many of the texts assigned. Gender was not a theme discussed or paid much attention to. Instead, Chido focused on his argument that reality is non-existent. Therefore, in regards to gender, it can be assumed that Chido may have believed that gender is ultimately non-existent, as well because it is an element of life constructed by self. There was not much mention of class hierarchy either. However, Chido does make reference to several powerful, well-known individuals, such as princes, sages, Buddhist masters, monks. In this respect, it can be assumed that individuals of higher class were looked upon as reference to be made in texts. This is because these individuals were well known to many readers for the power they held. So how does this text relate to assigned materials in this class? In many of the readings throughout this class, we have learned about Buddhist and other religious principles such as reaching ultimate enlightenment and meditation. The Buddhist principles demonstrated throughout this reading differ from the Pure Land Buddhist teachings, which we have learned about in this class as well. For this text explains how one can achieve true awakening through their own individual efforts. It is similar to a story that we read called Awakening Stories of Zen Buddhist Women, in the sense that both stories showed how through individual effort and determination one can achieve awakening. This text discusses the syllable A, which is a meditation practice used to aid awakening, which is similar to the meditation practices such as Om.